Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is Thursday, the 11th day of August, 2011. We're going to be live here for the next 3 hours. And we're also going to have wide open phones once I've gotten into some of the basic news. Now, the stock market has dropped, 1,000 points or so in the last week and a half. But today it's up 282 points currently. CNBC asked the question, markets are being irrational, so stay away from stocks. That's what their experts are saying. Is it really 2008 all over again, and why it could get much, much worse? We're going to be looking at the ongoing riots in the UK with the British government, the UK government now calling to restrict free speech all over that country, and to also start tracking and shutting down social media. Now, if Facebook, Twitter, and others, mainly Twitter, would have just shut down accounts that were calling for violence and coordinating criminal activity, it wouldn't be needed to go after everyone's speech. But this is how the system works. The police stand down, let 4+ days of riots take place, and then now Parliament is meeting right now, calling for all sorts of draconian restrictions, as we predicted they would do. In financial news, we're going to be going over all of it today. A national debt of $14 trillion, try $211 trillion. That's the headline by NPR. Continuing, government considers turning foreclosed houses into rentals. Continuing, government is also trying to offer U.S. bonds, but a record low sale price for 10-year notes. Again, Treasury sells 10-year notes at record low rate. We're going to be going over that report today. Also, yuan climbs to 17-year high against the dollar. We'll be breaking down exactly what that means. Another report here. The sun never sets on the British welfare system and a system of total dependency. There's a statement by the Exchequer of the Treasury over in England about the global financial meltdown that is being witnessed. Also, I got some inside Navy SEAL information, not from my Fort Hood or Fort Bragg sources, not from Colonel Six, but directly from the father of a Navy SEAL. And I've really forgotten that I've known this individual for years. I'll just leave it at that. And we've got some inside information on that front. In fact, I'll just put it out right now and then get more into it later. 17 Navy SEALs died, not 22, and that's expected to come out very, very soon. And yes, his son is not in SEAL Team 6, but has a best friend in SEAL Team 6. I'm not going to say too much, or they'll be able to figure out who it is. And they were very suspicious that they were ordered. His son's friend survived. He wasn't part of the crash. And wouldn't talk about whether he was on the bin Laden raid or not. They were very specific about the information that they gave me, so I want to be careful about it. But to make a long story short, and by the way, this is all the information I have. I don't have anything extra, so there's no need for the government to come kill me. I just want to make that clear. Any info we get, we release all of it except for the names. That they do believe there was a bomb on board the helicopter, and that they thought it was political, that they were put on that National Guard helicopter, something that they're not normally done, or that many SEALs were put on board the helicopter. And the scuttlebutt is that they think somehow Al-Qaeda or the Taliban got a bomb on the helicopter. Now, of course, that shows the naivete. They can't believe that the government would do it, but they do think that politics is involved somehow. And so that is the information on that front. I'll talk about that a little bit more. When we come back, we'll get into the latest in the riots going on in England. We will also stay with us. It is Thursday, the 11th day of August 2011. We're going to be live here for the next 3 hours. We do have some special guests coming up that I'll tell you a little bit more about later. But the headline up at drudgereport.com, the headline up at Infowars.com, most dangerous time for global economy. That's the head of the Exchequer, or the Treasury Secretary of England, saying that this is basically much more dangerous than the, quote, contrived, controlled demolition and looting of the economy known as the global banker bailout of 2008. And, of course, as we predicted, as soon as they had the Super Congress in place, just like they had similar systems in Ireland, Greece, and other areas, as soon as they used the earlier crises to get dictatorial control in place, then they can start the real implosions of the economy. Also, President Obama is in deep water. Representative Peter King says the Pentagon, CIA must investigate. Yeah, they're going to have Beelzebub investigate Satan. Obama and the death of Osama bin Laden, and the movie that he's producing secretly with the producers of Hurt Locker, which, by the way, is a very powerful movie. Had a lot of hype. Watched the movie on DVD months ago, a year after it came out, and it certainly lived up to the hype. But this is the type of propaganda we're dealing with. And before I get into all the financial news and give the toll-free number out and get into the latest big developments in England, Amazon disarms Brits by banning self-defense items. You know, a few days ago, it was pointed out that it was a 6,500%. That's when we happened to get a screenshot of it. It was actually 7,000+% at one time. Uptick in sales of baseball bats. They were the #1 sales item on Amazon UK. And they've now said, you know what? You're not allowed to have a baseball bat. Aluminum, wooden, the little batons, wiffle wall bats. You can't have it. You can't protect yourself. Absolutely ridiculous. And just an expanded example of how governments disarm the population, crime explodes, and the public has the book thrown at them when they try to defend themselves. So that's coming up as well. Also, a very interesting article. More and more governments are going to begin to unveil the super weapons. I've interviewed Dr. Bob Bowman, the former head of the Star Wars weapons program, colonel in the Air Force, when he got out and went to head up the SDI program. And he could only talk about on air and privately with me things that had accidentally been declassified that weren't supposed to be. And he talked about how the former head of SDI, after he left, in a debate about SDI really being an offensive weapon in the mid-1990s on C-SPAN, that he went ahead and leaked the fact, that is the pro-SDI individual, that they had unmanned drones circling the Earth since the 70s. And so Dr. Bob Bowman, in fact, it's time to get Bob Bowman back on tomorrow or next week. The problem is he really won't talk much about it. But it's so interesting. And it also shows all of these advanced technologies that are secret and kept from the public. But the reason I raise all of this is that in the 1970s, SDI was already in full swing. The public wasn't even told about it until 1981, and then it was announced that it was supposedly a new initiative. Kind of like they've now admitted, oh, yeah, 20 years ago we were cloning human embryos, but killing them before they grew too large. And, yeah, now we're mixing them with animals. And we've been doing that for a decade. And then, of course, later it'll come out that it was even previous to that. So there's a lot of things going on that are secret in this world. And here's the London Guardian today. It's also in a bunch of other U.S. papers. U.S. military to launch fastest ever plane. And if you guys give me a document cam shot, I'll show folks this. We can put the article up on screen for pacman.pt.vu viewers. Radio listeners, just go to Infowars.com. U.S. military to launch fastest ever plane. Unmanned Falcon hypersonic technology vehicle can travel from London to Sydney in less than an hour. And it flies at the declassified speed of 13,000 miles per hour, or 20 times the speed of sound. Now, I've talked a lot about this, but, and then I'll get into the rest of the news that's happening currently. But this is a lot bigger than just a story about this space plane. And it is a space plane. The issue here is there's a lot of secret technology, just like the stealth helicopter that reportedly is 3 generations back from around 30 years ago that you saw crash in the supposed bin Laden raid. There's a lot of things going on we don't know about. And that's why the system's so arrogant. That's why they're on such incredible power trips. And people need to get a hold of the national security apparatus and force all this out in the open. We've had the elite banking system setting up the CIA in 47 and getting the National Security Act passed to be able to do whatever they want. And so shipping in $500 billion in narcotics a year, now totally admitted, is the tip of the stinking iceberg. We are not in Kansas anymore. Human animal clones, old technology. Space planes, old technology. They tell you that the SR-71 Blackbird, developed in 52, in Secret Service in 55, in public operation in 59, is the fastest aircraft in the world. They've been saying that until today. Cruises at Mach 3 reportedly can go Mach 6. 1950s technology. We're not in 1950. We're in 2011. And I give you the unveiling of the new Falcon HTV-2. They claim they've been testing it since 2003, and that 8 years later they're letting you know about it now. If you believe that, I'll sell you the Brooklyn Bridge for $5. U.S. military to launch fastest ever plane. Give me a break. Unmanned Falcon hypersonic technology vehicle 2 can travel from London to Sydney in less than an hour. By the time you finish reading this sentence, the Falcon HTV-2, the fastest plane ever built, probably 30 years old, undoubtedly, they're now showing you this Tinker toy, could have flown 18 miles. It could get from London to Sydney in less than an hour, while withstanding temperatures of almost 2,000 centigrade, hotter than the melting point of steel. Now, they're going to start unveiling some of the 20, 30-year-old technology now because the Russians and the Chinese are getting a little uppity. And I have predicted here they're now going to start unveiling the 80s technology and 70s technology. Now, Dr. Bob Bowman revealed on this broadcast that by 1979, over 100 drone space planes in continuous orbit around the planet can decapitate the entire leadership of every major industrial nation in 1 hour with DU 100-pound Sabo meteor gun rounds. 100-pound Sabo DU rounds. They are not atomic. They don't cause a hydrogen explosion. The incredible acceleration when they fire it into a gravity well at a target can destroy bases deeper than 1 mile under the earth, under a mountain. They don't have bases 1 mile under the sea level because temperatures are above 120 degrees. You have to burrow under mountains and you get the nice 65 degrees on average year-round. This is a decapitation, total precision weapon. And they, by the 70s, the globalists that run our country had these craft circling the earth. Now, that's the 1970s. And Dr. Bowman can only talk about it because in a debate, the other former head of SDI shot his mouth off. Now, we're in 2011, and they're telling us about jumbo auroras, and that's what this is. I remember a Popular Science article a decade ago about troop vehicles reportedly in secret development that can deploy Marine Force Recon space troops, that can deploy Navy SEALs, anything they want in 1 hour, anywhere in the world. It goes up into space with its payload, comes back in over the target. They then are ejected in some type of space pod, getting it down near the ground, and then bring their little hovercraft in for a landing. They've also have systems deployed where they're in one-man pods and fired in like a missile, and then at around 100,000 feet, they eject with oxygen mask on and spacesuits and come into the ground. When I gave a speech I gave 2 speeches, 2 nights in a row to crowds of 900